Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you're chasing someone who runs the moment things get real? Like every time you get close, they vanish. What if I told you it's not you they're running from? It's the terrifying power of authentic love that's shaking their entire emotional foundation. Because here's the truth, you're not too much. You're exactly what they've spent a lifetime convincing themselves they'd never need. But the power of real love, it exposes everything they tried to hide. Avoidant attachment often gets misunderstood. People label them as cold, uncaring, emotionally unavailable, but that couldn't be further from the truth. What most don't realize is that avoidant behavior is not a sign of a lack of love. It's a reaction to fear. Deep, primal fear that was wired into them long before you ever met them. When someone has developed avoidant tendencies, it usually stems from a childhood environment where emotions were either dismissed, punished, or simply ignored. They learned very early that needing someone meant risking rejection, humiliation, or being seen as weak. So they adapted, not becoming stronger, but by becoming invisible emotionally. They built walls not because they don't care, but because they cared too much once, and it nearly destroyed them. You see, love is not neutral to an avoidant. It's not just another emotion they're indifferent toward. No, love is dangerous. It means vulnerability. It means exposure. It means surrendering a sense of control they've worked their whole lives to maintain. And when they meet someone who offers authentic love, not manipulation, not neediness, but grounded, open, emotionally safe love, it triggers a war inside of them because suddenly what they want and what they fear are the same thing. They want connection. They want to be seen. They want to be held in a way that feels safe and not suffocating. But every fiber of their nervous system is telling them, this is unsafe. Don't trust it. Don't go there. They push away not because they don't feel, but because they feel too much. They ghost when things get real because emotional intimacy hits an old alarm system inside of them, one that screams you're in danger. And yet, behind all that resistance is a heart that longs to trust, to love, to be held without judgment. It's not that they don't want love, it's that they don't trust themselves in it, because in the past, love has equaled pain. So their system is doing exactly what it was trained to dog protect. Withdraw. Distance. Disengage. That's not rejection of you. It's a reflection of what they still need to heal in themselves. So when authentic love enters their life, it's not easy. It rattles the very defense system they've spent decades building. But that doesn't mean they're hopeless. It means for the first time they're being challenged, not by control or criticism, but by truth. And truth has a way of breaking down even the most reinforced walls. Authentic love doesn't just comfort. It confronts. It acts like a mirror, reflecting back everything a person has tried to hide from themselves. And for someone with avoidant attachment, that reflection can feel unbearable. You see, they spent years perfecting a persona. Strong, independent, self-reliant. They wear emotional distance like armor, not because they don't feel, but because feeling once led to pain. So when authentic love enters the room, love that doesn't try to fix them, change them, or chase them, it does something far more powerful. It reveals them. There is a difference between conditional attention and real love. Conditional attention allows them to stay hidden. It allows them to play roles, maintain control, keep things surface level. But authentic love, it's patient, it's present, and it sees straight through performance. That kind of love is dangerous to the avoidant survival patterns because it doesn't allow them to hide behind silence or sarcasm or withdrawal. Instead, it calls their bluff. Not with pressure, but with presence. And that presence shakes them because suddenly they aren't just being observed, they're being understood. And that's terrifying. Being understood means being known, and being known means being vulnerable. And vulnerability in their emotional world is a threat, not because it actually is, but because somewhere in their history it once was. Maybe a parent who punished emotion. Maybe a partner who used closeness as a weapon. Maybe a time when opening up was followed by abandonment. So when someone truly sees them, not their achievements, not their image, but their essence, they feel naked. And avoidants don't do naked, not emotionally. And yet there's something magnetic about being seen with no agenda, no manipulation, no strings, just seen. It creates an internal conflict. A part of them wants to run and another part wants to stay. Because deep down, they do want to be loved this way. They crave connection like every human does. They just don't trust it won't turn into pain. But authentic love is patient enough to let them wrestle with that conflict. It doesn't demand a timeline. It doesn't beg for validation. It holds a mirror up and waits for them to recognize their own reflection, one they've been avoiding for years. And when they finally do, something begins to shift because real love doesn't need to push. It simply stands there unshaken until they're ready to come closer. Avoidants aren't afraid of love itself. They're afraid of what love requires. Vulnerability, openness, emotional honesty, these are not just difficult for them, they feel dangerous. They grew up in environments where emotional expression was unsafe, unpredictable, or even punished. So they learned to rely on themselves. They became emotionally self-sufficient, not because they wanted to, but because they had to. So when someone comes along offering deep emotional connection, it triggers old programming. Their nervous system starts scanning for threats, not love. Because to an avoidant, closeness often equals danger. But something changes when emotional safety enters the picture. When someone offers love that is steady, calm, and grounded, not reactive, not demanding, something begins to soften. The avoidant begins to experience a new kind of connection, one that doesn't suffocate, one that doesn't invade, one that doesn't ask them to abandon themselves to be accepted. It's not about being flooded with affection. It's about being safe in someone's presence. Emotional safety is not about perfection. It's not about walking on eggshells or saying all the right things. It's about being consistent. It's about responding instead of reacting. It's about proving through energy and action. I'm not here to control you. I'm here to understand you. For someone who's been conditioned to expect abandonment, betrayal, or manipulation, this kind of emotional environment is rare. It's unfamiliar. At first, they may resist it. They may test it. They might even pull away just to see if you'll chase or collapse. But authentic love anchored in emotional safety does neither. It stays steady. It doesn't punish them for needing space. It doesn't chase them when they withdraw. And that steadiness begins to do what pressure never could. It opens them up. When someone feels safe, their defenses lower naturally. You don't need to fight for their love. You don't need to prove your worth. What you do need is patience, presence, and unwavering emotional integrity. Because when the avoidant begins to realize your presence doesn't come with control and your love doesn't demand surrender, their internal alarm begins to quiet. Slowly, the walls start to come down, not through force, because trust is built in safety. And safety is the one thing their heart has been starving for all along. Avoidants are masters of emotional distance. When things get too close, they pull back, not to punish you, but to protect themselves. And in that moment, most people panic. They chase, they beg, demand answers. But the truth is, chasing only reinforces the avoidant's worst fear. That closeness means pressure. That love will cost them their independence, their identity, their freedom. What they need instead is something rare, something most people don't offer. What they need is stillness, patience, space without abandonment, closeness without force. And that is where authentic love becomes truly powerful. You see, when you're dealing with someone who's avoidant, every part of you might want to fix things when they pull away. But that's exactly when you must stand still, not cold, not indifferent, but grounded, energetically rooted in your own worth. Because avoidants aren't watching your words. They're watching your energy. When they pull back and you don't fall apart, that tells them something they've never seen before. It tells them, you're safe. I'm not here to control you. I'm not here to smother you. I can hold space without falling apart. And that kind of energy, that's magnetic. They've been through situations where closeness came with expectations, with pressure, with emotional chaos. They learned to run the moment someone got too close because that closeness always turned into something heavy, something suffocating. So when they meet someone who doesn't chase when they need space, someone who doesn't collapse into anxiety or start playing mind games, they start to question everything they thought they knew about love. They begin to sense a new possibility, a new way to relate, one that feels like freedom, not a trap. Patience is not passive. Patience is powerful. It says, I trust myself enough not to react. I trust you enough to return if this is real. That kind of presence rewires the avoidant's nervous system slowly, moment by moment. Because now, for the first time, they are experiencing connection that doesn't require them to shrink, to flee, or to shut down. They start to realize they don't have to up their autonomy to be loved. And when they begin to believe that, they begin to show up, not because they're forced, but because they want to, because something in them recognizes that this kind of love doesn't threaten their identity. It honors it. Avoidants often live in their heads. They rationalize everything, explain their emotions away, or deny them altogether. But what many people fail to understand is that avoidance is not just a mindset. It's a deeply rooted physiological response. The body remembers what the mind tries to forget. Somewhere in their story, they experienced emotional overwhelm and betrayal or neglect. And while their conscious mind may say, I'm fine, their nervous system is screaming, stay safe, stay alone. It's not that they don't want love. It's that their body has learned to associate closeness with danger and it reacts accordingly. Tight chest, increased heart rate, the need to escape. This is why logic doesn't reach them. You can't reason someone out of their trauma. You can't talk them into trust. The avoidant is not rejecting you. They are responding to something that was programmed in them long ago. And that programming exists in their body. Even if they don't remember the exact moment it began, their body does. It holds the tension, the fear, the memory of past moments when connection turned into chaos. So when someone shows up with authentic love, it doesn't just touch their heart. It activates the very place where their wounds live. But this is where real transformation begins, because authentic love doesn't speak to the mind first. It speaks to the body. It says, you're safe here. You don't have to run. It's found in the tone of voice that stays calm, the energy that doesn't react, the silence that doesn't punish, the presence that doesn't disappear. That is the language the avoidance nervous system understands. And slowly, through repeated safe experiences, that nervous system starts to recalibrate. They start to feel a new truth, not intellectually, but physically. Breath deepens around you. Their body relaxes. The urge to flee begins to fade, not because you convince them with perfect words, but because your energy proved something stronger than any argument ever could. And love doesn't always lead to loss. That not every connection ends in pain. That closeness can feel like peace, not pressure. But this kind of healing takes time, and it rarely looks dramatic, but it is powerful. Because when an avoidant begins to feel safe in their body around another person, everything changes. That's when the mind begins to follow. That's when the emotional walls begin to lower. Not because they were pushed, but because something deeper said, you're finally safe to open. The one thing avoidance can't handle is pressure. The moment they feel emotionally trapped, expected to perform or behave a certain way in order to keep your love, they retreat. But what they can't resist, what reaches them deeper than any demand ever could, is love that gives them space to choose. Love that invites, not insists. Love that stays calm when they pull away and doesn't chase when they get quiet. You see, the avoidant doesn't want to be controlled. Control is their greatest fear. Their nervous system is wired to equate closeness with losing freedom. But when love shows up without a leash, without needing to be earned, without clinging or demanding, it creates a kind of magnetic pull they don't know how to explain and they don't know how to run from. Because for them, freedom has always meant isolation. Being independent meant being alone. But this kind of love doesn't take away their freedom. It honors it, and that changes everything. When someone is free to be who they are, when they're given emotional space without guilt trips or ultimatums, they start to feel something they never associated with connection before and peace. Not confusion, not emotional chaos, just peace. And for the avoidant, peace is seductive. They start to lean in, not because they have to, but because they want to, because the love in front of them doesn't come with rules or conditions. It doesn't punish silence. It doesn't use absence as manipulation. It doesn't beg for affection. It simply radiates. And when love radiates, when it becomes an energy rather than a demand, it begins to penetrate walls that once felt impenetrable, slowly, consistently, without needing validation. This is where the shift happens. When love stops being a transaction and starts becoming a presence, the avoidant begins to feel something deeper than attraction. They feel safety. They feel seen. They feel I can choose to stay rather than being cornered into it. And choice for an avoidant is everything, because love that gives them the power to choose is the only kind they'll ever truly surrender to. Not because they've been forced, but because they've been invited. And that invitation, soft, strong, and non-reactive, is the one they'll keep coming back to. Because in the end, love that doesn't demand becomes the one they trust. And trust, for them, is where everything begins. Avoidant attachment is not a flaw or a failure. It's a defense built from real experiences where love felt unsafe, closeness felt overwhelming, and trust was a luxury they couldn't afford. What many mistake for coldness, often deep fear in disguise, and what looks like indifference is actually a heart that's been told over and over again that opening up only leads to pain. But the beautiful paradox is this: the very people who seem most unreachable are often the ones who long the deepest for connection. They don't need to be fixed. They don't need to be chased. They need to be understood. And when you approach them with authentic love, not performance, not pressure, but presence, that's when their healing begins. Authentic love does what no amount of logic, persuasion, or chasing ever could. It becomes a mirror. It reflects back not just who they are, but who they've been afraid to be. It shows them the parts they've buried, the emotions they've numbed, the truths they've denied. And as confronting as that may be, it's also liberating. Because to finally be seen without being judged, to be loved without being controlled, is something they didn't even know was possible. Real love asks nothing but brings everything. It brings light into the shadows they've lived with for far too long. This kind of love is not reactive. It's patient. It's not passive. It's powerful. And that power lies in its consistency. It's calm, and its refusal to turn love into a game. It understands that avoidants aren't testing your worth. They're testing the safety of love itself. They're waiting to see if your presence holds when they distance, if your energy remains steady when they shut down. And when it does, when your love stands without chasing, when your silence speaks trust instead of threat, their nervous system begins to believe a new truth in that love can be safe. That intimacy doesn't have to mean self-abandonment. That freedom and connection can coexist. So if you're loving someone with avoidant attachment, don't underestimate the impact of your stillness. Don't doubt the power of your emotional stability, because the love they've always resisted might just be the very love their soul has been waiting for. Not the love that demands their closeness, but the love that makes it safe for them to offer it freely. And in that safety, where they are not chased, not controlled, not judged, they begin to open. And when they do, what emerges is something raw, real, and deeply worth waiting for. I thank you for watching this powerful deep dive into the hidden world of avoidant attachment and the unstoppable force of authentic love. If this message spoke to you, if you saw yourself or someone you love in these words, know this: a healing is possible, and real love does reach even the most guarded hearts. You are not alone on this journey. I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments, your story, your insight, or just a simple, "I'm working on this." We grow stronger together. If this video helped you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of the upcoming transformational content. Remember, your presence has power, your patience is strength, and your love, when it's real, ground, and unapologetically authentic, has the ability to shift not just relationships, but lives. Until next time, stay strong, stay aware, and most of all, stay true to yourself. Take care and goodbye for now.